that same theme, because I know later on today with Ryan Gertis, we're talking about having tough conversations with sellers, and a lot of focus has been on listings and getting stale listings sold. But we also got to make some money, and buyers are harder to come by right now because of interest rates, because of sensationalism, in the marketplace and things like that. So I'm going to share some tips of what we are doing and what I am doing to procure buyers. Number one is focus on lead sources. You've got to find where some leads are at. If you don't have a strong sphere of influence, if buyers are not just falling into your lap, you got to focus on lead sources. Who has leads? Where can you get leads? And of course, Nick, as you know, a good majority, and you know more than I would, but a good majority of teams here at West USA do offer leads.
Yeah, I mean, we have lots of teams that offer a different type of leads. Again, you're going to interview each team and see what they can provide to you. I see you've got the reload department up on the screen as well. I think when this kind of market happens and agents aren't really sure who to talk to, talking to renters is an amazing place to begin. If you don't have anyone to talk to and you're looking at trying to bring leads in, renters is where it's at, because you can talk to these renters, show them the stuff that Matt just talked about, and try to explain how they actually could potentially purchase a home as a buyer and not necessarily just be renting. And then you turn those renters into a buyer. That buyer then becomes a seller, and boom, now you have a long-term client that you have just built a relationship with over the course of a few years.
Yeah, Matt. And if I had nothing to do today, which I got a lot to do today, I'm ready to go golfing.
Yeah.
But if I had nothing to do today, or I wasn't that busy, I would take 10 rental leads a day, because just ask the right questions.
Ask the right questions, and obviously from a qualification perspective, if they can afford 2,000 or 2,500 in rent, why not? With down payment assistance and other options, why not consider that? I really like this middle point as ask other agents if they have old leads in exchange for referral fee. There's so many times, and we all suffer from that. Like we look at like what's right in front of us, and we forget about some of these historic leads. But how many times I get a call from a buyer like, "Hey, remember you helped me 6 months ago, a year? I'm ready. I'm back. I want to go back again." Like shaking the tree for old leads is really a no-brainer, and we don't prioritize and time block that enough.
100%. I remember who I was talking to, but I was talking to somebody last week that said they went back and they called through a handful of old leads, and they picked up 5 buyers who are ready to rock and roll.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and we do have some agents that are busy and have been busy and have really just kind of nailed it over the last 3, 4, 5 years. But with busyness means a lot of older leads slip through the cracks.
Mhm.
And so there may be some agents, some top producing agents that in the offices, and say, hey, listen, and set up a referral form
Mhm.
for the leads. We do have a referral form where you can just list all the people or attach a spreadsheet to it, and just say, hey, let me have you're not going to call them, so I might as well call them. And then and there are some lenders out there that have would love to have somebody call leads that might be 2 years old, 3 years old, or whatever the case is, and just have another, someone making a touch, whereas
a
they don't.
different conversation,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes that's enough to wiggle it. And I'm always the one who throws in my hat if you've got leads and you want a lender to call them and they're old, and I'm happy to.
Yeah.
I'm okay with someone hanging up on me, so
Well,
it's fine.
and when it comes to the teams and the real department, if you're kind of not sure where to start with that, just talk to your branch staff. If you're with West USA, again, if you're not with West USA, let me know. We'll get you those transfer forms over ASAP, and we'll get you started off on the right foot.
All right. So with that being said, oh yeah, and then and I know, and I threw this out there because um, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I'm not getting a call or an email or a text
Yeah.
from some new lead source out there that I've never heard of. Or when I'm on, it seems like when I'm on Facebook, like every third post for me is a sponsored ad of somebody offering leads. So I would say in this market, not a bad not a bad idea to maybe check them out and see if they're legit. But that's the thing. Do not get signed up with any unfamiliar lead sources without checking reviews and talking with other agents out there, especially if they're asking for a lot of upfront money. All right. So, second point to procuring buyers is I like our saying on our team is old is new again. I In our team meeting the other day, I sat the team down and I said, okay, I'm going to tell you a story, and this is what it was like when I entered the marketplace, and describe what it was like. And I'm like, well, it's not really that much different than today. Um, But part of it was that philosophy was every lead that you get is you got to place a value on it. There's no such thing as a bad lead. Now have time to really, really work leads. So you have to have that mindset. Whatever lead that you have, no lead is left behind. And Matt, my philosophy is keep reaching out until they either say yes or tell you to go pound sand. And when someone, and then there's some thoughts on that, when a client does tell me, hey, don't ever call me again, I do respect that. I do remove them from the database. I'll give them to somebody else on the team, let them call them. But anyways, um, but go back to every lead that you have, every lead in your database, you should be trying to connect with, following up at least once every 30 days, whether it's a text message, an email, a phone call, a video text, or something. No lead left behind.
And with all the stuff that we put out here on this webinar in particular, you have the material, you have the arsenal of
Yep.
what to say. And sometimes it's just the fear of getting over it and just making the call. But it doesn't matter if it's been a year or 2 years, like just the call in itself. And just even a voicemail or they see your name on the caller ID. Sometimes that's enough to get them to be like, oh, you know what, I need a realtor, or I know somebody. And so you never know, that activity will breed more activity. You just got to do it.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about being top of mind. Top of mind is where it's at. We get a little discouraged. I get a lead, I call them. They're not all that excited to talk to me. They're short on the phone. They're rude on the phone. But I'm telling you, when they are ready to transact, the mood changes. Who's top of mind? I remember I had this dude call me once a month about my windshield, once a month. And I got tired of it. I was never very friendly on the phone. But one morning, he called me and I had a big old crack in my windshield.
You're like,
I
huh.
was ready to transact. And I could tell you my mood and my attitude towards this guy changed significantly.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
And connect regularly with your sphere of influence. Figure out who your sphere of influence is, build that plan, and connect with them. Because when I say newly left behind, really, it's all about being top of mind. Most people aren't, especially when you get a new lead, most people aren't ready to transact on the spot. You want to be top of mind. You want to be there when they're ready to
So,
transact.
really quick, Mikey. So, what would you say what's the difference in your opinion between your sphere of influence and your leads? Is it different conversations with them? Is it different content that you're sending to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. My sphere of influence are the people that I look at in my sphere that have the ability to send me leads, whether it's friends, family, clients, past clients, whatever the case is. When I'm referring to leads are just, all the Zillow leads that we've had in the past for us, radio leads that we've had in the past, realtor.com leads, open house leads, or whatever,
And all those
whoever
leads.
that you've put into your CRM.
Perfect. And that was the word I was looking for, was the CRM, because a lot of agents are looking at this and saying, how do I do this? That seems like a lot of work. It's not if you have a CRM and you've got your system set up.
And I think some people confuse sphere of influence with social media. And don't just post on social media and
Exactly.
think you're getting out to your sphere of influence. Because how many times you post something and then they're like, oh, I just bought a house and I didn't even know you were a realtor. You're like, well, you haven't seen you've been liking my post for 4 years.
Yep.
What do you mean? So get out there and make phone calls, connect, right?
100%.
All right, and you have to in this marketplace, you have to be able to overcome rate objections. Matt, I mean that is the
That's it.
biggest that's it. So you've got to know the numbers. For me, when I'm having conversations with buyers and they go, "Oh, rates are so high." Well, let's take an historical view of things. Yes, are they incredibly high compared to your neighbor might have got, 2 3/4 or three and an eighth? Yes. But when you take a look at the historical average, which was for me, I believe it's 6.75. But for the most part, we're there right now. And that is a lot lower than the first interest rate I got on my very first home.
Absolutely. And I think one other thing, and this is, I'll just throw in my 2 cents on this conversation, because what I do is, would you rather pay $200 or $300 more a month for $50,000 in 3 years? And I use the $400,000 home, 4% appreciation is $50,000. And that's real quick math, but it gets them
Yeah.
thinking about, it's not always about what my payment is, my lowest payment possible. It's like, well, would you give up $200 today or 300 per month to make 50,000 in 3 years? I think everybody would say, of course. So then you get them refocusing the conversation on what's really important.
Well, and that just kind of leads into that. My next point is, this is the question: is it better to pay a higher interest rate and get a better deal on the home? I'd rather pay a higher interest rate and get a home $40,000, $50,000 under true market value because sellers are desperate? Or is it better to wait for the lower rate and pay considerably more for a home? Because I'm predicting, okay, I think in 2013, I do think rates are going to drop, or
Or
2023.
2023.
I personally think rates are going to drop. What I don't know is how low they're going to drop. If rates get into the fives again,
Hmm.
okay, or high fours again,
Hmm.
okay,
Possible.
that
Absolutely
home that
possible.
you could buy today at today's price is going to be gone. There is going to be another
Boom.
buyer frenzy
Another buyer
because
frenzy.
everybody is waiting for this.
Yeah, and I think now's the time, right? And that's the conversation, because if you can get seller, help assistance towards closing costs, like you do the math on it, especially if you're in the low down category, why would you wait? If you can qualify for it today, you just suck it up, right? Because you're going to get the return, because homes are not going to go down in value. We've talked about that, right? Just simply supply and demand. I mean, you would have to double the amount of inventory for you to even start to see stuff like that. And so really pushing, and this is where sales come in. And sometimes we've forgotten over the last 2 years that we're salespeople, and we need to get out there and be more sales focused, not slimy, used car salesman, but we need to be fully educational sales about, look at all the financial benefit, and maybe run those numbers. And I'm happy to, as a lender, to talk to a client about, well, if you paid 10% more next year, here's what the numbers look like, and run the comparison.
Well, and that's why, I mean, one of the reasons why we started this series that we began 3 weeks ago on the current marketplace is because a lot of agents don't understand. And Matt, you just hit it on the head. It's educational sales is what agents need to do to be able to get their buyers and sellers in the right position in this climate. I love that you're hanging out with us talking about these conversations, because this is what you do every day. So agents that are on this call going, I don't feel comfortable having these conversations, pick up the phone and call Matt Baker, call a lender that you're comfortable with, and have this conversation. Ask them their details and their points on this stuff, because they're going to be able to do it, because they've never stopped having these conversations.
And I don't want to be the jerk in the room, but
Usually are.
I usually am. If you're not comfortable having these conversations, and to your point, Matt, if you're not comfortable being in sales and selling this, go to the Department of Real Estate's website. Okay, log in, download a copy of your real estate license, and underneath your name it says salesperson. That that is your title, right? It's as simple as that. So anyway, so yeah, so it is, and I think for going back to Todd's class that he's doing later on this week as far as business planning, I don't necessarily gonna say that these strategies are going to land you 5 buyers this week, but this really is that long-term play of getting ready for 2023 for me personally, because it is just about staying connected and getting to them when they are top of mind. And one of the things we don't have on here, but really, going back to Matt's flyers, reach out to Matt and see what kind of materials he has, because you do need to start creating content. You leverage your CRM to be able to send out these flyers and post some of this stuff on social media.
Yeah, and even taking my flyer and doing like a little Loom video or something where you're bubble up in it, and you can then post it yourself with your own words, because obviously experience, the perception of experience, be able to have that conversation, people are just going to gravitate and watch that stuff. That's what the content is they're looking for online. So